At the end of every sprint, there is a meeting where your team shows their work. Not talks about their work, shows it. It's called sprint review meeting. And it is the most misunderstood meeting in Scrum. Let me tell you why. Most teams treat this like a status update. Someone opens a side deck, reads a list of what was done, and everyone notes. This is not a sprint review meeting. This is a meeting that could have been an email. A real sprint review is show and tell for professionals, stakeholders. You bring finished work, you put in front of your stakeholders, you invite their reaction, and you adjust based on what you hear. Because that feedback loop is the entire point of that meeting, okay? I once worked with a marketing team that spent 6 weeks on Rebrand. They showed it to their VP for the first time at launch. The VP rejected the direction in 10 minutes. 6 weeks of work gone. So sprint review every 2 weeks surfaced that misalignment on week 2, not week 6. Without that checkpoint, small misalignments become expensive mistakes. Marketing team launches messaging that the sales team cannot use. An HR department rolls out an onboarding process that hiring managers reject on day 1. An operations team implements a workflow that compliance blocks after 3 weeks of effort. Every one of those failures has the same root cause. The team built something without checking whether it landed. The sprint review exists to catch that every 2 weeks instead of every 3 months. Okay? So here's how it works. The team presents the work they completed during the sprint. Not the work they started or that is almost done, but the work that is finished, usable, and ready for feedback. Then they call stakeholders. Stakeholders attend. These are people who care about your product, your VP, your client, another department that depends on your work. They review what was delivered, they ask questions, and share reactions. And then the product owner updates the backlog based on what was learned from that meeting. Okay? So if the stakeholder says the report format needs a different breakdown, that becomes a backlog item for the next sprint. If they love the campaign draft but want the messaging adjusted for a different audience, that gets captured. The sprint review turns stakeholders' opinions into prioritized action, not halfway conversation that get forgotten. So the important thing to remember, the sprint review is not a presentation. I rather call it a conversation. You're not defending your work. You are demonstrating it and asking, does this meet the need? And what should we adjust? If your sprint review ever feels awkward, long, or tense, it's almost always because it's turned into presentation instead of conversation. Remember that. And that's not people problem, but format problem. And it's fixable the moment you shift the energy from performing to collaborating. Now, I would like to share a couple of examples so you get the picture. So in marketing, the sprint review is where you show the finished landing page, completed ad creatives, and the final Q3 report draft. You walk the stakeholders through it, they react, they ask for one adjustment to the headline. And that adjustment becomes a backlog item for the next sprint. Let's take a look at HR, for example. This is where the team shows the revised onboarding checklist. the screened candidate shortlist, and the updated offer letter template. The hiring manager selects 2 candidates to advance. That fits directly into the next sprint's planning. In operations, you demo the updated vendor onboarding workflow. The compliance lead spots a missing approval step. It gets captured. And if stakeholders suggest more than the team can take on, that is normal. So, if stakeholders suggest more than the team can take on, then the product owner evaluates each suggestion and decides what belongs in the backlog and what does not. Because not every idea goes into the backlog automatically. And filter working as intended. And for those that do make it in the product backlog, the product owner decides whether they go into the next sprint or wait further down the list based on priority. Because a backlog that accepts everything becomes a wish list, and the wish list has no direction. And the product owner protects the team focus by only keeping items that align with where the product or project is actually heading. The sprint review is not a performance evaluation. Nobody is grading your work. It's a feedback session about the product, not the person. So the goal is to find out whether what was built meets the need, not whether you personally measured up. Once you internalize the distinction, the meeting stops feeling like a test. Here is what trips up new team members. They think they need to present like they are pitching to executives. No, that's the wrong path. You don't. A sprint review demo can be as simple as sharing your screen and saying, "Here is the finished campaign brief. These are the 3 audiences we targeted. This is a messaging framework. What feedback do you have?" That takes 90 seconds and is more useful than 20 slide deck. Okay, remember that. And here is another thing most people do not expect. Sometimes the team committed to 5 items and finished 3. That gets shared too. Here's a quick tip that will help you save your credibility in those situations. Don't say, "We tried our best but ran into some issues." That sounds defensive, it tells the room nothing and invites doubt. Say this instead. "We committed to 5 items, we completed 3. The vendor response template and the FAQ document carried over. Here is why, and here is our plan for next sprint." The first version protects your ego. The second version protects the team's trust. Stakeholders do not expect perfection, they expect transparency and a plan. Okay? Now, here is a small assignment for you. Before your next sprint review, I want you to prepare 3 things. Number 1, the screen you will share. What will you actually pull up and walk people through? Number 2, 1 sentence summarizing what you completed and why it matters. Not a paragraph, just 1 sentence. And number 3, 1 question you will ask stakeholders. For example, does this meet the need? Or what would you adjust? Either one works. If you walk in with those 3 things ready, you will be the most prepared person in the room, in that meeting. Okay? Next, we cover the meeting that every team needs, the one that makes every sprint better than the last. This is sprint retrospective meeting, and we'll follow this lecture.